Here's what nobody tells you about the first real raise, the first big paycheck, the first year your income actually jumps. Most people think the hard part is earning it. It isn't. The hard part starts the week after, when the money is already sitting there and you have to decide, fast, whether you're going to use this window correctly or waste it the same way almost everyone around you already has. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. More income doesn't fix a shaky foundation. It just makes the cracks in that foundation more expensive. People who make more money without fixing the structure underneath it don't end up wealthier. They end up with a bigger version of the same problems they had before, just harder to see, because there's more money moving around to hide them. I've watched this play out enough times to know exactly what separates the people who turn a raise into real, lasting security from the people who turn it into a slightly nicer version of being stuck. There are 10 specific things you need to fix the moment real money starts coming in order from the one almost everyone already knows, to the one almost nobody thinks to fix until it's already cost them years. Leave a like. Subscribe, and let's get into it. Thing 10. Start here because this one seems obvious until you understand how many people skip it entirely the moment their income goes up. More money coming in creates a strange, false sense of security. It feels like the safety net you never built simply isn't necessary anymore, because surely you could handle an emergency now with your new income. That feeling is wrong, and it's wrong in a specific, measurable way. A higher income usually comes with higher fixed costs almost immediately: a better apartment, a nicer car payment, obligations that scale up to match the new number. Which means the actual cushion between your monthly expenses and disaster hasn't grown at all. It's often shrunk, because your lifestyle absorbed the raise before your safety net did. The fix is specific and unglamorous: 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, sitting in an account you don't touch, built before any lifestyle upgrade happens at all. Not invested. Not earning much. Just there, boring, waiting, so that a lost job or a medical bill doesn't force you back into debt the moment life throws something unexpected at the income you just started depending on. What fails? Building this fund last, after the new apartment and the new car and the new habits are already locked in. By then, there's rarely anything left over to fund it with, and the first real emergency arrives exactly when there's nothing underneath you to catch it. There's a specific reason this has to happen before anything else on this list, not alongside it. Every other fix, paying down debt faster, investing more aggressively, upgrading insurance, works best when it's irreversible, when the money is genuinely committed and not sitting somewhere it could be pulled back out in a panic. An emergency fund is the one piece of this puzzle that exists specifically so that every other piece can stay untouched when life gets difficult. Without it, a single bad month forces you to unwind the very progress you just started making, pulling money back out of investments or going right back into debt to cover something the fund should have absorbed. Now thing 9, the one that makes every other fix on this list pointless if it's ignored. High-interest debt doesn't sit still while you earn more. It compounds against you the same way an investment compounds for you, except in the wrong direction. Credit card balances carried month to month, personal loans at aggressive rates, these don't get smaller just because your paycheck got bigger. They keep charging the same percentage, on a balance that grows if you're not actively attacking it. The specific math that matters: paying off debt at a high interest rate is, functionally, the same as earning a guaranteed return at that same rate, risk-free, immediately. There is no investment available to a normal person that reliably beats the interest rate on an unpaid credit card balance. Which means the very first thing extra income should go toward, before any new purchase, is closing that gap. The trap almost everyone falls into: using new income to make minimum payments feel easier, rather than using it to aggressively eliminate the balance. Minimum payments that feel manageable are exactly what keeps a debt alive for years instead of months, quietly taking a slice of every future raise before it ever reaches anything that actually builds your future. There's a specific psychological trap that makes this worse the moment income rises. A bigger paycheck makes a debt payment feel smaller as a percentage of what's coming in, which creates a false sense that the debt has become less urgent. It hasn't. The balance and the interest rate haven't changed at all, only the buffer around them has, and that buffer disappears the moment lifestyle expands to match the new income, which it almost always does within the first few months if nothing is done deliberately to prevent it. Thing 8. The one almost nobody checks until they need it for something important, and by then it's too late to fix quietly. A credit report is a running record of every financial decision you've made that involves borrowing, and it directly determines the interest rate you'll be offered on every future loan, a car, a mortgage, sometimes even an apartment lease or a job application in certain industries. The moment your income increases is exactly the moment you're most likely to be making bigger financial moves, which makes this the moment errors on that report become expensive. Reporting errors are more common than most people assume: an account that isn't yours, a payment marked late that was actually on time, a balance reported incorrectly. Each one can quietly drag down a score by enough points to change the interest rate you're offered, which over the life of a large loan can mean paying thousands of dollars more for the exact same amount borrowed. The fix takes an afternoon. Pull your full report, read it line by line, dispute anything inaccurate through the proper channels. Most people who make more money never do this simple check, and instead carry an invisible tax on every future loan they take out, one they could have corrected in under an hour. Thing 7. The one that feels boring until the exact moment it becomes the only thing that matters. As income rises, so does what you actually have to lose. A car accident, a health emergency, a lawsuit, these don't scale down just because you're doing better financially. If anything, more assets and more income make you a more attractive target for the kind of financial disaster that underinsurance turns into a permanent setback instead of a temporary one. The specific gap almost everyone has: liability coverage that was set at a minimum years ago and never revisited. Health coverage chosen for the cheapest premium rather than the coverage that actually matches new financial exposure. No umbrella policy at all, despite having meaningfully more to protect than the person who originally chose that coverage level. The fix is a single review, once a year, matching coverage levels to your actual current financial picture rather than the picture you had when you first signed up. It's the least exciting item on this list, and also one of the few that can single-handedly prevent one bad event from erasing years of financial progress in a single afternoon. Thing 6. The difference between people who build wealth quietly and people who mean to but never quite do usually comes down to this exact mechanism. Manual saving, deciding at the end of each month what's left over to save, loses to automatic saving almost every single time, for a reason that has nothing to do with discipline and everything to do with how spending naturally expands to fill whatever's available. If the money is sitting in a checking account waiting to be decided about, it tends to get spent, gradually, on things that felt justified in the moment. The fix is structural, not willpower-based. A portion of every paycheck moved automatically, the same day it arrives, into savings and investment accounts before it's ever available to spend. Not a decision made monthly. A rule set once, that runs in the background regardless of mood, motivation, or how the month is going. People who do this the moment their income increases build the gap between their lifestyle and their earnings automatically, without needing daily discipline to maintain it. People who wait until they feel ready to start saving more consistently find that feeling never quite arrives, because lifestyle expands to meet income exactly as fast as income grows, unless something structural interrupts that pattern on purpose. Thing 5. The one that feels irrelevant right up until the day it isn't, and by then there's no fixing it retroactively. A will. Updated beneficiary designations on retirement and insurance accounts. Basic power of attorney documents. None of this feels urgent when you're young and healthy and just starting to earn real money, which is exactly why almost nobody has it in place, and exactly why it matters the moment there's actually something worth protecting. Beneficiary designations are the specific detail almost everyone gets wrong. These override a will entirely, meaning an old account still listing an ex-partner, or a beneficiary field left blank from years ago, can send meaningfully large sums to the wrong person or into a slow, expensive legal process, regardless of what any other document says. The fix takes an afternoon and gets revisited once a year. Check every account that has a beneficiary field, update it to reflect your actual current wishes, and put at minimum a simple will in place. It's not about expecting something to go wrong. It's about making sure that if something does, the people you'd want protected aren't left navigating a system that defaults to whatever paperwork happens to still be on file from years before any of this money existed. Thing 4. The one that compounds faster than almost any investment account ever will, especially early on. The biggest asset most people have isn't their savings account. It's their ability to earn, and that ability isn't fixed. It can be actively grown, the same way a portfolio can, through skills, certifications, a degree, a network, direct experience that makes the next raise or the next opportunity larger than it would have been otherwise. The specific mistake that shows up constantly, treating every dollar of new income as something to either spend or passively save, with nothing set aside specifically for improving future earning capacity. A course that sharpens a high-value skill, a credential that opens a higher pay bracket, even deliberate time invested in building a professional network, these often produce a return that dwarfs what the same money would have earned sitting in a typical savings account. This isn't about spending recklessly on anything labeled self-improvement. It's about treating a portion of new income as deliberate investment in the machine that produces all future income, because that machine, unlike a single windfall, keeps paying out for the rest of a career if it's maintained and improved on purpose. The specific window that matters most is early, right after income first jumps noticeably. At that point, the gap between current earning capacity and realistic future earning capacity is usually at its widest, which means every dollar reinvested into skills or credentials has more room to compound over the remaining decades of a career. The same reinvestment made later still helps, but there are fewer years left for the resulting income increase to compound across, making this one of the only items on this list where timing genuinely changes the size of the eventual outcome. Thing 3. The one nobody frames as a financial decision, even though it might be one of the most powerful on this entire list. Spending habits, saving habits, and risk tolerance are heavily shaped by the people closest to you, not through explicit advice, but through ambient normalization. What feels like a normal amount to spend on dinner, on vacations, on a car, gets calibrated largely by what the people around you treat as normal, whether or not anyone ever discusses money directly. The moment income rises is exactly the moment this effect gets tested. New opportunities to spend appear, nicer restaurants, more expensive trips, upgraded everything, and the people around you either reinforce a pattern of building real security, or quietly reinforce a pattern of spending to match a new income level as fast as it arrives. The fix isn't dramatic. It's noticing, honestly, whether the people you spend the most time with treat saving and long-term thinking as normal, or treat visible spending as the marker of having made it. Proximity to the second group doesn't require malice or bad influence. It just quietly recalibrates what feels reasonable to spend, one dinner and one comparison at a time, until a year later the lifestyle has crept upward without a single conscious decision behind it. Thing 2. The one that sounds too simple to matter, right up until you try to answer it honestly. Ask most people whose income recently increased exactly how much they spent last month, broken down by category, and almost none of them can answer with real precision. Not because they're careless people. Because a higher income makes it easier than ever to lose track, more accounts, more subscriptions, more small purchases that individually feel insignificant and collectively add up to a meaningful percentage of the raise disappearing without a clear explanation. This is the specific mechanism behind a phenomenon almost everyone has felt at some point. Income goes up, and yet, somehow, a year later, there's no more breathing room than before. Nothing dramatic happened. No single bad decision caused it. It happened because the money was never actually tracked closely enough to notice where it was leaking, and untracked money reliably finds a way to spend itself. The fix isn't a rigid, restrictive budget that has to be followed perfectly. It's simply visibility, a habit of checking, at minimum monthly, exactly where the money actually went, categorized honestly, compared against what you assumed was happening. People who build this habit the moment their income rises catch the lifestyle creep while it's still small and easy to correct. People who skip it usually don't notice the creep until it's already consumed the entire raise, and by then, there's no clear moment to point to and say that's when it happened. Everything up to this point is fixable with a checklist. An afternoon here, a phone call there, an account opened, a document updated. The next one isn't a checklist item. It's the thing that determines whether you actually do any of the 9 things just covered, or whether you read all of this, not alone, and go right back to exactly what you were doing before. If you've made it this far, stay for this next part. It's the one thing on this entire list that decides whether the other 9 actually happen. I know what you're expecting. And I'm going to say it directly before making the argument. None of the previous 9 things matter if you haven't fixed how you actually feel about money increasing in the first place. This is the one almost nobody lists, because it isn't a task. It's a mindset shift, and it's the one that quietly determines whether every other fix on this list actually gets done. Some people, the moment income rises, experience a specific, uncomfortable feeling, a sense that they don't fully deserve it, that it could disappear as suddenly as it arrived, that spending it quickly is somehow safer than trusting it to stay. This feeling drives exactly the behavior that undermines long-term security. Impulsive spending used to prove the money is real, discomfort with saving that manifests as finding reasons not to, and inability to sit with the quiet, undramatic feeling of money simply accumulating. Others swing the opposite direction, treating every dollar of new income with such anxious restriction that they never actually enjoy any of the security they're building, turning what should be a source of freedom into a new source of constant, low-grade stress. The actual fix here isn't a spreadsheet. It's building a calm, steady relationship with the number itself, treating income as something to be managed deliberately rather than something to be either feared or chased. People who do this successfully don't feel a dramatic emotional spike every time their income changes. They feel something closer to quiet competence, a sense that whatever the number is, they know exactly what to do with it, because the structure underneath it was already built before the emotion had a chance to make the decision for them. Every other item on this list is a task. This one is the reason the tasks actually get finished. 10 things. One pattern underneath all of them. Money doesn't fix what's broken underneath it. It just moves faster through whatever structure is already there, good or bad. Fix the structure first, and more income becomes real, lasting security. Skip the structure, and more income just becomes a faster way to end up back where you started, with a bigger number attached to the same problems. The moment your income increases isn't just a reward for what you already did. It's a test of what you're about to do next, and almost nobody passes it by accident. Leave a like if this changed how you're thinking about your next raise. Subscribe, there's more coming that most channels never think to say directly. Fix the structure before the money arrives to test it. See you in the next one.